Turn up the dial, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories are talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the group. Untold Radio Network, the secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. Today's episode is pre-recorded. It will be going to you live on January 2nd. That's right, guys. Happy New Year from all of us here at the Untold Radio Network and myself, Barnaby Jones, and Caps, and all of us here. So hope you guys had a happy and safe holiday season and a happy new year. We are coming to you guys in a couple weeks here. The Caps team is going to be in Oshkosh, Wisconsin on February 9th at the first Beyond the Veil Expo event. It is going to be in Oshkosh, Wisconsin at the Oshkosh Convention Center on Main Street. It is just $5 to get in, and we are going to be there. And then after that, guys, we are going to be at the Midwest MetaParaCon, and that is in April. And we are going to get you some more details on that once it gets closer. There's a lot of great guest speakers coming to this event. It is a big 3-day event over in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And then, guys, May 9th, 10th, and 11th, we are going to be at the Wisconsin Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention. Friday night, we are going out for a Bigfoot hike. Saturday is the convention in Appleton, Wisconsin at the Doubletree by Hilton. And Sunday, we have some great paranormal investigations for you guys to come out and enjoy as well. Make sure that you grab your tickets. They are $30 in advance or $40 at the door. And also, guys, no matter where you are, you can come out and check out the event because we have virtual tickets. You guys can live stream all of the speakers from this event at your convenience, either live or anytime after the fact. Just get your tickets for $5 at wisconsincaps.com. Click on the public events tab or the CapsCon page. That's what we got going on, guys. If you want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, today's guest, just want to remind you guys today we are pre-recorded. My guest is Zach Bales. He has had an interest in the paranormal for as long as he can remember. Growing up in rural Kentucky in the foothills of Appalachia, Bales spent much of his youth fascinated by tales of ghosts, monsters, and little green men. His interest in the paranormal has taken him to the far corners of North American continent and to 28 countries on 5 continents. Over the years, Bales has come face to face with many of Earth's most compelling mysteries, from the jungles of Latin America to the antique lands of Northern Africa, from the moors of England and Scotland to the cradle of civilization in the Middle East. Bales documented these encounters in 5 books: The Amateur's Guide to Ghost Hunting, The Expert's Guide to Ghost Hunting, The Bigfooter's Atlas, The UFO Chaser's Atlas, and The Atlas of the Unexplained Mothman. In December of 2020, the Bigfooter's Atlas was recognized as the Book of the Year by the International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. Bales' fascination with folklore and storytelling led him to pursue a career in the study of English language and literature, obtaining a BA from the Eastern Kentucky University and an MA from the University of Cumberland. Bales sought out a position in secondary English education, where he spent the better part of 2 decades. In October of 2020, Bales was recognized as the Kentucky Teacher of the Week. Bales is a regular on the convention and festival circuit, appearing alongside his wife Melissa at events throughout the United States. Bales has been featured in television and film, as well as a number of nationally syndicated radio programs. In 2020, Bales opened the Paranormal Road Trippers Nightmare Gallery in Somerset, Kentucky, which features his collection of curiosities, a menagerie of the unusual, the unexplained, and the otherworldly, as well as a one-of-a-kind gift shop. In 2024, the Nightmare Gallery doubled in size, making it the largest exhibit of its kind anywhere in the world. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he is here to chat with us today. Please welcome Zach Bales to the show. Welcome, man. How you doing?
Hello, it's good to be here. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing awesome. I'm staying nice and warm here. I don't know. It is still December when we're filming this, but I'm sure it's going to be icy and freezy in January. So
yes,
not looking forward to
sure
that.
It will. I'm sure it will. Nasty winter ahead of us, I'm sure.
Oh man, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't like winter. I don't like cold.
Well, it's hard to get out. It's hard to get out and do much paranormal investigation when it gets so cold outside at times.
And ironically, we do all of our paranormal investigating for the team in the winter because we're not out in the woods looking for Bigfoot and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's just happens to be that way. So
oh yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense for sure.
But it is definitely nice to be in the nice toasty warm locations sometimes doing your paranormal, and that's always a plus. So staying spooky and warm.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. So you have a amazing list of accolades here. I mean, so many places all over the world looking for this stuff and that, and just, man, where's been your favorite places you've been?
Gosh, my favorite paranormal hotspots. I tell you, I'm always, when people ask that question, I'm always drawn to really 2 places, one of which nothing weird happened to me at. The other did, but the place that nothing weird happened at was Alcatraz okay. Island out in the San Francisco Bay. Just a spooky, location to go. And I would love to just be able to tell you that I saw something or heard something, but all too often in my experience on paranormal investigations is sometimes you just don't have a lot of luck. It's like fishing, and you bring out your rod and reel and you just don't catch anything that night. But so that's probably my favorite location. I didn't get anything, but really the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, is probably my favorite haunt, or so-called haunt, that my wife and I have traveled to and experienced. And we did have a little bit of unusual phenomena happen to us during our stay there.
Wow. Well, tell us about it. What happened?
Okay, well, if you're not familiar, of course, with the Stanley Hotel, it's got quite a history, being the basis for The Shining. This is where Stephen King, the film itself wasn't filmed there, and neither the exterior nor the interior, but many of the ghost stories that were featured in the Shining novel were based upon tales that circulate around the building, and certainly there's been a lot of weird stuff that's happened there over the years. It's been reported. It's become a paranormal hotspot, and so I guess our first stay there was about a decade ago. We drove from Kentucky. We're based out of Somerset, Kentucky, South Central Kentucky. We loaded up in the car and we decided to have a paranormal road trip. And it took us down through New Orleans and across Texas, the Alamo, headed up through Roswell, New Mexico as we were circling back home. And as we were heading up through northern New Mexico and we were getting into Colorado, we thought it might be a good idea to stop for a night or two at the Stanley Hotel and see if we had any luck with drawing out any of the ghost stares. So we checked into the hotel. I tell you, it's weird. It's weird, and it's hard to. So we're pulling into Estes Park, and of course you see the Stanley up. Have you ever investigated the Stanley Hotel?
I have not, no.
Well, you're pulling into Estes Park. Of course, you're high up in the Rocky Mountains. They say it's 7,500 feet above the ordinary. That's what they say of the Stanley Hotel. So, you're rolling into this town, and there's this big, enormous, sprawling, structure, the white Stanley Hotel up on this mountainside looking down at you. And you just get this vibe that, this place, you can just tell that if there's such a thing as being haunted, this place certainly is. You can just tell it by looking at it. And so as we rolled in, it started to drizzle the rain on us. We pull up outside, and my wife, she usually sends me in to check into the hotel while she gets all of her overnight bags and stuff together at the car, and then we come out and carry them all in together. But so she sent me in. I went in the lobby of the hotel there, and it was everything that I was expecting. The big, ornate, grand staircase that leads up to the second floor, the hardwood floors. There's an old Stanley steamer, actually, the car, parked there in the entry as well. Big roaring fireplace with a grandfather clock. I mean, the dusty grandfather clock. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. It's just the perfect look. And sure enough, there was the check-in desk, and I walked over to the check-in desk, and of course, it's one of those like old bellhop looking people that wearing a uniform back behind the thing with all these keys, these ornate little dangling golden keys dangling from the little shelves behind them. And I walk over to the guy and I say, I'm here to check into her room. And the guy says, okay, well, what's your name? And I give him my name. I give him my last name. I say, Zach Bales. And he starts thumbing around on the computer, and I can tell by the look on his face that something's not quite right. And I kind of wait there, and he says, wait a minute. What did you say your name was? And I repeated it. And now I'm starting to get worried, because it looked like there was a lot of people at this hotel. And I was thinking, oh no, we booked online. Did we make a mistake? Have we booked the wrong night? And the guy starts thumbing around on the computer again. And he now his brow kind of furrows, and he's kind of got this look like, I can tell something's really amiss. He said, Zach Bales. And he thumbs around again. He says, wait just a minute. Let me go get someone else. And he turns around. He disappears back into the back room. And by now, my red alert's going. I'm thinking something's definitely wrong here. And sure enough, he comes out and he's got a manager with him. And he starts to whisper to the manager. I can't tell what they're talking about, but they start typing around on this little computer again there. And he said, that's odd. That's really odd. And the original guy says, yeah, this has never happened before. I've never seen anything like this before. And he said, you're just now checking in, like right now. And I said, well, of course, I just got here. What do you mean? That's why we're having this conversation. He said, this is odd. He said, it says here on the computer that you checked in hours ago. I said, what? He said, yeah, it says that you were already here and we already gave your key and all this stuff to you. And you checked in hours ago. I said, well, no, I just got here. He said, that's really strange. He said, well, either way, welcome to the Stanley Hotel. And he gave me my key, And I thought, that's a little strange. I told my wife, we headed upstairs. We had a room on the 4th floor of the hotel. And that's often considered to be the most haunted floor on the Stanley hotels, the 4th floor. I think room 237 gets a lot of publicity as being the most haunted room. But I think the ghost hunters back in the day, they found that room 401 was the one that gets a lot of activity as well. Well, we would tried on our way in to book both those rooms. We wanted to stay in the most haunted room, tried to book room 401, tried to room 237, but we found out that there's a waiting list for these rooms that is months, if not years long, that you have to book room 237 like 2 years out, and room 401 like a year and a half out. So we did not get those, but we told them we'd like to be as close as possible to these to the haunted rooms. So I think they gave us room 411 on the 4th floor, and so we get in the elevator and start up. And I'm telling my wife on the way up, they said that there was somebody apparently came, I guess claiming to be me or something, and tried to check into the hotel. And she said, that's weird. And we're having this conversation. Well, we get up to the top floor of the hotel, and here's the thing about the Stanley Hotel, they don't really tell you, but if you're into science, that heat rises, and the Stanley Hotel does not have air conditioning units. They figure, I guess it's in the Rocky Mountains, way up there in altitude, so it must be cool year round. Well, it was a really hot summer that we were there, and as we got off the elevator on the 4th floor of the Stanley Hotel, we were just hit by this heat wave, and it was like, man. And I'm talking to my wife about this, and we go down the hall and open our door and go into our room, and I'm just now sitting the stuff out on the table, and she says, boy, oh boy, this is hot. And I said, yeah, it really is. And I said, well, what do you want to do? Do we go downstairs and say we don't want to stay on the most haunted room? And she looked at me, my wife did, like, you're not on the most haunted floor, not the most haunted room. We tell them we don't want to stay on the 4th floor? And she looked at me, and she kind of had a sarcastic look on her face. And she said, yeah, I think we should really do that. I think we should go downstairs. Well, matter of fact, why don't we just check out and just leave the hotel completely? Again, she was being sarcastic. Well, as soon as she said those words, why don't we just check out and leave this hotel completely? Something happened. And I still this day have no explanation for this. I don't know. So we're in the room. There's a table over in the corner of the room, and it's got like a coffee maker on it, and it's got like the little styrofoam coffee cups and the little plastic lids, and it's all sitting over here in the corner of the room. Well, I kid you not, as soon as she said that, she said, well, maybe we should just leave the hotel. There was some sort of movement. I mean, you could just hear something slide, something move over in the corner of the room, because both of our heads at the same time sort of darted over to this table where the coffee maker was and the coffee cups. And I kid you not, we were both watching as what looked like an unseen hand smacked those coffee cups and those coffee lids completely off that table. I'm talking, they scattered around. They were rolling and spinning around the floor. And of course, it was startling. It startled me. It startled her. I think we were both in each other's arms, and we were looking and staring at this as these cups were settling on the floor. And she said, oh my gosh, what was that? My wife said this. And I said, well, you were making fun of them. I said, I don't, if this place really is haunted, you were just threatening to leave. And she said, my God. And I said, I have a feeling we're going to have an exciting night ahead of us here at the Stanley Hotel with the whole check-in situation. Someone had already checked in for us. And then we got up there and threatened to leave. And there was something that happened here. And of course, I try to be rational about this stuff. I went over in the corner. I looked for maybe an air conditioning unit. I remembered, wait a minute. They don't have air conditioners at the Stanley Hotel because it was so hot up there. They don't have it. That's the gimmick of the whole thing. I can't still to this day explain what happened, what that noise was, what the movement was, what knocked that stuff off. But we started our investigation a little later on that night after the sun had went down there. And then, of course, they have The Shining, the film itself, playing on loop at the hotel, like 24 hours a day. So, we had that on in the background, and we were getting kind of, jittery. I'm sure you all kind of get a little jittery before these kinds of investigations as well. And we were getting kind of fired up for the thing. And we had brought a few pieces of equipment with us that night. One of them, I think it's Paranologies, is the company that makes this device, the Pyramid the pyramid. It's an ultrasonic motion sensor. And it's a pyramid shaped device. And on two sides of the pyramid, it shoots like I guess an ultrasonic pulse, almost like a bat would, I guess, sending out like an echolocation. And so if something breaks that pulse on either side of that pyramid, it'll beep. It'll beep loud, it'll whine. And basically on the device itself, it'll light up, explaining to you how far away, whatever that is that broke that beam, it'll tell you. And if you were to take your hand and get a little closer to that pyramid, it'll actually show you 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 feet, right up to the thing. So it's got 2 of these sensors on there. We had that device with us that night. And that was the one I picked up because we were going to go looking around. We're going to go looking around, snooping around for ghosts here at the Stanley. And I'd heard that the most of the floors were crawling with ghost hunters. It didn't matter what time of day or night it was, what time of year it was. I'd been told that there's just ghost hunters everywhere, all day, all night. But that night, it was like we had the floor to ourselves. We went outside the room. I didn't see anybody around. We went straight to the spot where, according to what I'd read online, that Stephen King himself had an experience at. According to legend, I don't know if anyone's ever asked King about this. I don't know where this story had stemmed from, but I'd always heard that there was a spot on the 4th floor next to this little couch, this little settee, that he had encountered the girls from The Shining, the sisters, and, that he had experienced something, and that was why that ended up in his book, because King had stayed there himself back in the 70s. So I wanted to go straight there. I wanted, if Stephen King had seen these two girls, I wanted to see them for myself. So we went straight to that little couch there on the 4th floor, and just me and my wife. And again, it was eerily quiet. There was no one else around, which I've been told is hard to do. Hard to find time like that where there's not some kind of ghost hunter milling about. But we went straight to that couch, and I turned on my pyramid and I sat it down. This long hallway, and this right up against one side of the hall. There's room doors up and down the hall. Well, I set the little pyramid down on that, and I flip it on, and we start our investigation. And we always start our investigations with an opening statement, and we always end our investigations with a closing statement. So we started by saying, I think it was me that mentioned it that night. I said, we've come a long way, all the way from Kentucky to Colorado. If you're here, if there's any ghosts or the spirits that are said to haunt this hotel tonight, if you would make yourselves known to us, if you would give us proof that you're here. And then we started our investigation itself. I started asking, if the little girls, I said there was an author here back in the 1970s who wrote about this hotel rather famously. And he, according to reports, had encountered a couple of girls right here in this hallway, right at this spot. And I said, well, I'm an author. I've written a couple books at this point. I'd love to have an experience myself. I would love to meet the same two girls that he had run into that night back in the day. And I said, if you're here on the count of 3, I would appreciate it if you'd come right here. And I demonstrated. I held my hand out to one side of that pyramid. Again, there was 2 sensors. So I held up my hand on one side, and I said, just sort of bring your hand down right here if you're here. Just kind of set it off like this. Now, when I put my hand down, the thing starts beeping and whirring and carrying on. And then I pull my hand away. I said, just do that. Just do that for me. And then I start to count. 1, 2, 3. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. He's like, oh my gosh. I was expecting something, and nothing happened. My wife and I sat there silently for about, 6 or 7 seconds. And it's like, well, that was disappointing. We were thinking, surely this is the most haunted floor of the most haunted hotel. I didn't expect we'd have to really kind of bait anything to show itself, but nothing happened. So I said, hey, we've come a long way. We would really appreciate it if you'd come up here and show us. Again, all you got to do is this. We're not gonna harass you. We're not gonna intimidate you. We're not gonna try and, we're not here to make fun of you. All we want is proof. And again, on the count of 3, please give us some proof that you're here. And then 1, 2, 3. Nothing happened. Again, twice, coming up completely dry. And on this, and I'm getting frustrated, and I think my wife's frustrated. We shouldn't. We've been in this long enough to know that, again, it's like fishing. You're not always going to get. But I guess the mystique of the Stanley Hotel, we were expecting just a circus of paranormal activity. I guess it's what we were expecting at that point. But and so I at this point I was getting a little impatient, and I did something maybe I shouldn't have done. Maybe I should have done. I said, hey, we've spent a lot of miles on the road, here, and I'm starting to think this place really isn't haunted at all. I'm starting to think that it's all smoke and mirrors, that you don't exist. And I said, I tell you what, I was in the process of finishing a second book about ghosts at the time. I said, I'm going to make the last chapter of that book about this place, and I'm going to tell everybody who ever reads it ever again that there's no such thing as ghosts at the Stanley Hotel, that they don't exist. I said, I'm going to start driving customers out of here. I'm going to try and make it where nobody comes back here ever again. I said, unless you prove me wrong right now, you got to do it, or you're out of luck. It's over. And I said, just do this. And I held my hand out again next to that thing, and it was registering, I think, that my hand was 3 feet away from the sensor. I said, on the count of 3, I commit, show yourself. And I started counting 1, 2, and I think my wife could hear that I was meaning business, because I felt her grab onto me. I mean, she pulled in close. I think she was a little intimidated. To be honest, I was a little intimidated too, making these kinds of statements at such a long heralded location for this stuff. And then I say 3, as if on cue. The little sensor on that pyramid on the other side, it lit up, and I was already beeping because I had my hand on it, and suddenly it's lit up that there's a hand on the other side of the thing. Of course, I had my hand on the left side. Now it says that there is a hand the exact same distance, 3 feet away, on the other side of that device. And I kind of got chills just now just thinking about this, to be honest with you. And so I'm holding it out here. Of course, I can't see anybody standing there next to this pyramid. And my wife, I can feel her just getting a little tighter, and I'm getting a little tighter to her. And I say, can you move your hand a little closer like this? And I brought my hand a little closer. And now it says I'm just 2 feet away. And suddenly on the other side, it shows that it's just 2 feet away as well. This unseen hand is 2 feet away. I move mine closer. It says that it's 1 foot away. This unseen hand suddenly gets 1 foot away. And at that point, I kind of realized that, man, I'm really close to this thing. I pull my hand away and take a few steps back. The pyramid continues beeping. It now shows that I'm no longer there on my side, but there's still something setting that ultrasonic motion sensor off on the other side, still 1 foot away. We sat there and watched this thing whir and hear it beeping for about, 3 or 4 more seconds. And then that hand, or whatever it was, disappears, and we're pitched, caved back into silence there on the floor of the building. And I say, of course, thanks. That's what we were going for. Thank you so much. And well, we by that point it's starting to get a little later, and we'd already done some investigating elsewhere in the hotel. We started making our way back to our hotel room. Again, we were in room 411, but we had to walk right past 401 on our way back to our room. And as we were going by, my wife was kind of bemoaning the fact that we couldn't stay in the most haunted room. She said, it's such a shame. And on the other side of this door is the most haunted room. And I stop. And I say, well, I tell you what, we had a little bit of luck earlier with the pyramid trying to bait. I said, what if we can't get in there? Maybe we can get whatever's in there to come out to us. And she says, I don't like the sound of this. And I said, I don't know if I like the sound of it either. But we might as well try it. We might as well try it. And I had a video camera with me, and I started recording, and we start gathering together across the hall. And I say, I'm speaking now to the spirits that are in this, what I'd heard was maybe the most haunted room of the building. We're not staying in that room tonight, but we'd really appreciate it if you would, come out here and show yourselves to us again on the count of 3. And so I started counting again, and I feel my wife we're kind of pressed back up against the wall, and I got my camera out, and I say 1, 2, 3, as if on cue. Again, I have no explanation for us. Room 401, the door comes unlatched and opens about 8 inches. Of course, I'm now pressed completely up against the wall across the way, and we're both pressed up thinking, what on earth is going on? And we sit there, and it's pitch black inside the room, but the door popped open about 8 inches just where you can see through, and we're sitting there, and we're just wide-eyed staring at this doorway, and all of a sudden, a man's face, the man who was actually staying inside the room, he comes over, and his face appears in the door. It makes us want to scream because we think, what is this? Is it a ghost? No, it's just a guy. It's a guy, and he comes up to the door and he says, did you all just touch this door? And I said, no, we didn't. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to break into your room. He said, no, I don't think you are. He said, but I wasn't touching this door either. He said, we're doing an investigation in here. I said, really? I said, well, I promise I didn't touch your door. I've got it on camera right here. He said, we've got a bunch of cameras set up inside this room too. And neither of us touched this door. And I said, that's incredible. That's weird. He said, well, do you want to come inside and investigate with us for a while? And I looked at my wife and I said, it's almost like fate here, trying to get inside this place and look around. So of course we didn't turn it down, and we went in there and we investigated for probably another hour. We didn't want to impose on these people. They were actually on their honeymoon. A couple from Fort Collins, Colorado, were on their honeymoon, and so the last thing we wanted to do was impose on their honeymoon. But we stayed in there for 30 minutes or an hour. But it was cool. I would love to say that we got all sorts of crazy paranormal activity inside room 401, but it didn't really, not really. I mean, we may have got some very inconclusive EVPs and that sort of stuff, but I don't know. It still brings chills to me. That was the end, really, of our best. We ended up going back to our room that night and falling asleep because we had a long drive home. We had to head through Kansas and start circling back to Kentucky the next day. So, but still, one of my favorite locations. I went on and on. I'm sorry about that too.
That's all right.
One of my favorite sites that I've ever investigated, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado.
Very cool. So a couple questions. You talked about the whole keys behind the guy at the check-in desk.
Yes.
Do you actually still use a key to get in your room, or you got the stupid cards?
No, unfortunately, it was all for looks. It was all for looks. They still have, I think, all the old door keys back there, but they give you a plastic card key.
Lame. All right.
I tell you what, a couple years later, we went up to a Timberline Lodge in Oregon, where they filmed the exterior of the Stanley, or not of the Stanley. They filmed the exterior of the overlook we're huge Shining fans. There's really 3 hotels. The stories come from the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. The interior of the hotel is designed after the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite National Park, and then the exterior for the movie was the Timberline Lodge. Well, we've done all 3, but at the Timberline Lodge in Oregon, they still have all the old keys and everything, and they actually sell them. So many people are so enamored by them that they in the gift shop you can just buy the old keys. They have the exact little logo and everything on there. So that's one of those things I've got. I'm looking at one right now. It's over here on the wall.
So you have yourself the Paranormal Road Trippers Nightmare Gallery Museum down in Somerset, Kentucky, right?
Yes, that is true.
Let me. You have to tell me that you kept one of the cups that flew across your room for your museum.
Unfortunately, I did not. But I will say this: I didn't even know there was going to be a museum at the time. If I'd known that it would have been,
all right.
that it would have been, yeah. We didn't open this museum did not open until 2022, and unfortunately, this was 2015. So it was. Yeah, I constantly looking back earlier. There's all sorts of things I would have liked to have picked up along the way that if I could go back in time, I would be a lot different. I'll just put it like that.
All right, I'll forgive you. I was gonna say because you got to have that amazing story there, and you got to have the cup that goes with it all in the museum. And
I know. I kick myself still to this day that I didn't do a better job of collecting souvenirs all these years because I just didn't know. I didn't know there would ever be a chance to put on the kind of attraction or the exhibit that we have.
Very cool. Well, what do you have at your museum? Tell us all about that.
Paranormal Road Trippers Nightmare Gallery is a collection of just things that I've picked up. Me and my wife both have picked up all throughout our lives, really. We've always been interested in this kind of phenomena, all sorts. I call it the unusual, the unexplained, and the otherworldly. It's an ode. The museum is to all things that go bump in the night. So not just ghost stories, but cryptids, cryptozoology. we usually have a Kentucky bent on most of these things, but you'll also find exhibits about things that are outside of Kentucky as well. But we also celebrate UFO legends and lore. Kentucky actually has a lot of UFO history that we recognize in the museum. But we also, it wouldn't be a great paranormal museum if you don't have stuff about like Roswell and Area 51 and some of the other. So I mean, we cover all sorts of things. But I usually on my tours, I I focus rather significantly on a lot of Kentucky legends and lore. But we're also big fans of horror movies. And so you'll find all sorts of odes to our favorite horror films. We have a lot of prop replicas. We actually have a number of screen used props and costume elements from some famous horror films. We have a screen used prop from the original Friday the 13th film, from the original Child's Play film, from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, from one of the Scream sequels, My Bloody Valentine. We've got a number of screen used props. So if you're a horror movie fan, you'd be right at home at the Nightmare Gallery as well.
You were telling me as we were getting ready here about the Halloween poster back there and the connections to Somerset and Kentucky.
That is true. If you're a Halloween fan, of course, this is the Michael Myers series. If you're not familiar with the title, Halloween is the Michael Myers. It was a John Carpenter film. John Carpenter was born. He was born in New York City, but he spent most of his childhood in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Used it as a foundation for many of his films, including Halloween. Haddonfield in Halloween takes place in Warren County, Illinois. Well, Warren County, Kentucky's Bowling Green. Smith's Grove Sanitarium. Smith's Grove's right outside of all these connections. But Somerset in particular is connected to the Halloween series because of the production designer on the original Halloween film. A guy named Tommy Lee Wallace. He was the one who designed the look of Michael Myers, designed the mask. The guy who realized if you take a Captain Kirk mask and spray paint it white and tease out the hair, that's pretty spooky. That guy was actually born and raised right here in Somerset, Kentucky. He went on to be the production designer on many of John Carpenter's films, was the director of the wrongfully hated on Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, I feel like. He was the director of that one. He was also the director of It, the original It film, and was the guy who came up with the look of Pennywise for that film. So I always tell people the legend of Pennywise and the legend of Michael Myers, it could be argued, were both born right here in Somerset, Kentucky. So naturally, we have a display all about Tommy Lee Wallace and his contributions to film history.
Very cool. So, what other spooky artifacts do you have? Anything haunted items or anything like that in there?
We do. One section of our museum is dedicated to the paranormal history that we have, not just here in Kentucky, but all over the United States. We have a seance room. We have a lot of paranormal investigation equipment, both old and new. Some of our paranormal investigation equipment can trace back to the 1800s. It's a common misconception. I feel like I hear from a lot of people to the Nightmare Gallery. They come in, they say, I think that ghost hunting is a relatively new phenomenon. Something that's only come around in the last couple decades because of the shows on TV like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures. But yeah, I always tell them, that's not really accurate. Ghost hunting has been around for hundreds of years. And it was actually most popular probably in the 1800s, the age of the Victorian era, the age of spiritualism, when just about everybody believed in ghosts. So we have quite an exhibit about a lot of those mediums and seances, and we have several archaic pieces of ghost hunting equipment. But the highlight probably of our exhibit on the paranormal is our haunted objects, a collection of artifacts that have been given to me over the course of the last 20 years. We still get them. Actually, we just installed a new piece into the museum just a few weeks ago from a local couple here who had no idea we even owned a museum here in Somerset. And they came first day. They said, "Oh my gosh, we've got something for you." But we've had a lot of those kinds of stories over the years, and we've got them all behind glass and locked up. And we still to this day we get a lot of, I don't know, you hear a lot of funny things down there, especially after dark. And there's one set of dolls in our museum that we get a lot of activity out of those dolls. I would say, just in the last couple of years since we've been open, we've had several thousand guests come and visit us from all over the United States. Out of that number of guests, so that we've had, I would say anywhere between 300 and 325 of those guests have claimed to have seen these two dolls, one or both of the dolls, move inside of the glass case that they're in. And honestly, just recently it's become, I don't know exactly what's going on, but these dolls are becoming more and more active just in the past, since September. This has become a very regular phenomenon. Used to be reported to us about once every couple of weeks or so back when we first opened, but just in the last couple of weeks, or not couple of months, excuse me, it's become an almost every single week phenomenon, sometimes multiple times per week. But I'll tell you the tale of these two dolls. And it'll give you something to look for if you ever make it down to Somerset. About 5 years ago, my wife had a coworker. My wife works at the hospital here in Somerset. And she had a coworker about 5 years ago, and this is very important. This young woman did not believe in ghosts. Well, she inherited a couple of very antique porcelain dolls from her grandmother when her grandmother passed away. At first, this young lady was excited to receive these two dolls. They looked nice. They looked like a nice memento of her grandmother's life. She had no qualms at all about bringing those dolls into her home. Well, almost immediately, this woman's two young sons started complaining to their mother. The boys started saying things like Mom, the dolls, great-grandma's dolls, they're moving around in the night. We've seen them move with our own two eyes. We've heard them pitter-pattering around the house in the night. And to be honest, we're starting to get a little weirded out by this. Well, again, this woman didn't believe in ghosts, so she automatically assumed one of two things. Either A, the boys were letting their imaginations get the best of them, or B, they were just lying to her. In which case she told them, you know what happens to little boys who lie to their moms and dads, they get a spanking. And she thought that would be the end of the whole thing, but it wasn't. Very next morning, the youngest son came to her again. He told her, he said, Mom, the dolls, they were doing it again last night. Well, this went on for weeks, finally came to an end about a month later when the youngest son came forward once again, this time like visibly shaken up. And he told her, he said, Mom, the dolls, they're not just moving around now. She said, not just moving around. He shook his head. He said, no, now they're hurting us. She said, hurting you? Little boy pulled up his sleeve on his shirt. There were deep scratch marks up and down his arms. It matched just perfectly with the little porcelain fingers on the boy doll. Well, suddenly this woman started believing in ghosts. She threw those two dolls into a garbage bag, tied it off, took it to work where she knew my wife was. She knew we were interested in this sort of stuff. And I'll never forget it. I got a call 5-6 years ago from my wife. She said, I've got something here. You're going to have to come over to the hospital tonight and pick it up. She'd worked nights at the time. I said, what is it? And she said, I'll tell you when you get here. And I drove over and she gets heading outside with a garbage bag. She said, this is ours. I said, we're stealing garbage from the hospital now? She said, no. And then she started kind of telling me, and the actual woman who owned the dolls came out and they came to me and they said, take them away. I never want to see them again. Well, so I had to put them in the passenger seat of the car and drive them home that night. And which was a little unnerving, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, those are the dolls. And we get more guests to our museum will complain about those two dolls moving around, winking their eyes, their heads, their arms, their fingers, all sorts of strange activity out of these dolls. Most recently was yesterday on a 4:00 tour at the museum. I had a couple who claimed to have seen the dolls move. So this happens very regularly at the Nightmare Gallery.
Interesting. Have you tried to do any investigating with them or EVPs or any kind of stuff and do you know who they are, what they are?
I have had some. At one point I had a individual. Sometimes we let all sorts of investigators come in and do their own investigations at the gallery, and I had a group come in. I've never had much luck getting EVPs, that sort of thing, off them, but I have had another investigator who came in who claimed to have received an EVP with names. Let's see, it was Elizabeth and Mark, I believe, were the two names that she managed to, I guess, conjure out of the dolls. But It was, inconclusive. I would say that perhaps was the names, but no, it's still a work in progress. I've always asked myself, I wonder where the grandmother had gotten these dolls before she had passed away. Again, I don't know the full detail, and the woman who'd inherited them wasn't entirely sure either. So unfortunately, some of this will, at least for now, remain a mystery, I guess.
Interesting.
But we're always accepting new artifacts and things into the gallery. Like I said, we don't really have room for all the artifacts we have. Unfortunately, I only put my favorites in. But we have another, like, an alternate location where some of the other stuff kind of hangs out. But I'm telling you what, we get some. The Nightmare Gallery, when we built it. We built kind of like a TV room, like a man cave, you might say, upstairs above the gallery. And my wife, she works at a hospital. She works 12-hour shifts. So I'm a teacher, so I'm off in the summers. She works from 6 to 6 in the summers, 3-4 days a week. So there's a lot of nights where she's got to go to bed very early, and I'll slip out to the gallery, and I'll go upstairs, and I'll be all alone up in the man cave, watching TVs, watching spooky movies, that sort of stuff. And I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that there were some times up there when you hear some really weird stuff down there in the museum. And I've been watching movies and heard some things, paused them, and some really unnerving stuff, some stuff that I can't quite explain. And it sounds like people are trying to break into the gallery at all. We've installed camera systems around to try to keep track of all the movement around outside the gallery, inside the gallery, and never see anything on camera, but the noises are people, as I said, people violently sounding like trying to either get in or get out of the place, and never have recorded. I don't know. It's just it's spooky. It does weird me out being out there sometime, but it's kind of like you make your bed, you got to lay in it. So I've kind of, I built the thing, so I'm gonna have to put up with it.
Your dolls are trying to get out of their cases.
That could be the case. Well, we got them all locked. We got them locked up. So I hope that's enough to keep them in. But,
Why do you think that certain objects hold energy? Why do you think that they become possessed or have stuff attached to them?
That's a good question, and I would like to tell you that I have a really thoughtful answer to that, but I don't. I don't. I don't. Because sometimes you'll see objects and you'll think, surefire, well, that's got to be haunted. And I feel like that sometimes people will, invite me into their home and say, I've got this old grandfather clock, or I've got this thing, and I think this is the root of all of our problems, and all too often. I feel like that it never pans out maybe the way that they think it will. I don't. It's hard to say, but sometimes people thought there was a doll at their home that was haunted, and don't tell them. But I've actually taken these types of things out of their house because it puts their mind at ease, even though I've never necessarily got any real paranormal activity out of that doll. It's not something that will be on display in our museum or anything like that, but it does enough. It's a placebo effect, I think, sometimes. But as far as why some objects are more drawn to that, I wish I had a good answer, but I don't. I feel like I'm still learning things myself all the time, so I'm waiting for that maybe epiphany to come at some point. Do you have a theory yourself, or?
I don't know. Like it's weird. Like you talk about dolls and stuff. Like you feel like little kids in that are very attached to them. They have a very emotional attachment, and they put that energy into them. They carry it around. They love it. They take care of it. They talk to it. They put that in there. So either maybe like they build that character in it. They give it its own personality and create like a Topa effect to it. But then you have these other things that are just weird objects, and people claim that they're haunted and stuff. Like, for instance, we have a turkey decoy that moves on its own. We've had all kinds of weird stuff happen around it, and why the heck this thing has anything attached to it, I have no idea. Or is it something that is just not attached to the turkey, but just likes manipulating it and moving it or whatnot? I don't know. But I mean, surely some little kid didn't carry this thing around as its best friend and manifest that energy into it. So,
yeah, interesting.
I don't know.
Maybe it's the ghost of the turkey this year.
That got shot by it. Yeah. And we don't. I used to own a haunted house attraction, like Halloween Haunted.
Oh yes.
And
Okay,
this turkey decoy was in that, and it moved, and that's why we kept it out of there. And we've had we just released back in November an episode here about all the stuff that happened around this turkey. It's called The Tale of Tom Turkey on our YouTube. And I don't know if it's just all synchronicities or if it's, something that's actually with it, but I don't understand. I don't know. So
yeah, I'm telling you, a lot of it's a mystery. I feel like if anybody knew all the answers, then I don't guess there is anybody with all the answers. Except Alex Trebek. He had all the answers. He didn't have any questions, though, is the problem.
Do you think people would still come to your museum and look at all these haunted artifacts if we had the answers? If we knew why that doll was haunted and we knew who the person was in it, do you think that mystery and mystique would hold still?
I get asked that question a lot, believe it or not. And I think there's especially when it comes to, I know this is paranormal bent, but I get a lot of Bigfoot investigators at our museum and UFO investigators, and they're the ones who often will ask these questions, especially like if it, and I think that, belief in a lot of these things is people want to believe in a lot of these things because the world, it always seems like it's getting smaller. The more technology and the more that science unravels the mysteries of the universe, I think that actually drives people to want to believe in something more, in something a little more, ambiguous. The idea that science hasn't been able to fill in all the map. The idea that there's certain things out there, whether it be Bigfoot or ghostly activity or UFOs, that defy the people in their ivory towers who think that they have answers to everything. There's something to be said for that. I think that people want to believe in these kinds of things. And your question was, I think that it would drive people, or
would people still come and be interested in those things if we knew where they came from?
That's a good question too. You're stumping me tonight. I would think so. I think so. I do. I think that people. I think that people like the unknown. I think that's why people get on roller coasters and sort of thrill rides. I feel like it's anything spooky. I feel like there's a good market for that's like the haunted house attraction that you were talking about a moment ago. I mean, people, even though they know it's not a real, monsters and things jumping out at them, I feel like people are still drawn to these things. And I don't know. I think it's part of human nature, perhaps. It's just to embrace the unknown, to embrace strange stuff. It's hard to say. I wish I could be more artful in my response, but
yeah. No, I was thinking while you're talking there, like, with museums, like look out in Washington, D.C., we have the Museum of Science and Industry, you have the Museum of Space and air travel and all that stuff. And even these things, like a lot of the science, we don't know all this, and dinosaurs, and people still go to all these museums. We claim to know so much things about, dinosaurs and fossils and all that stuff, or just natural history, like, just animals that we have around, us now that you can go see in the zoos. And we claim to know all this stuff about them, yet people still go to museums. They still go to zoos. They still want to interact with this. And I think that that's important to look at when people ask those questions about, would we still care about Bigfoot if we knew it was a real animal? Would we still know about the paranormal if we knew why these objects were haunted or knew aliens existed? I think no matter what, people are always curious and they're want to experience these locations and go to them. I mean, like, look at the Grand Canyon draws how many people every year to look at a big crack in the ground, for better or worse, that's what you're doing. And people are going there and looking at this because it's just maybe a rite of passage, to go and see these destinations and stuff. So,
well, I will say, I believe that interest in unusual phenomena is at an all-time high. I will say that. I think there are more people interested in Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts than any other time. I mean, just notice the number of conferences and festivals and events and the sheer number of people who are coming to these things. It's a huge percentage of the population. And I tell you what, as far as ghosts go, I've had some very cynical people come to the gallery. I shouldn't say cynical. That's harsh language. But I'll have people who come to the gallery who are very skeptical. They don't believe in it. There'll be maybe one member of their family who is a big believer, and they'll come in and say, "Oh, I'm not even. The tour is not for me. You're talking to them. I'm just here as a wingman, let's say, and I'll do the whole tour, and the tour will be over." and we got a gift shop too. And maybe the person who's interested will go over to the gift shop and they'll be shopping. And that's always when the skeptical person will come over and their voice will get a little lower and they'll say, you know, I don't always tell people this, but I've experienced a couple things that I don't know exactly what they were either. And it's incredible. The more people you meet, it feels like just about every one of them have had something weird, something unusual happen to them at some point in their life. And they don't always want to admit it. They will always put on that, you know, that stone wall when a lot of people are around. But I feel like sometimes when they come to our museum and they hear me rant and rave about all sorts of weird stuff for 40 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, I feel like their wall starts to come down a little bit and they feel a little more comfortable to be able to say, you know what, I've actually seen a UFO too. You know, it was back when I lived in Florida. And, there was no flights from NASA that were scheduled, but we saw this thing. And I mentioned Florida and a flight from NASA because this is something was told to me just a couple weeks ago by someone who didn't believe and didn't want to believe and didn't. I don't know. It's just interesting. It's just interesting.
Absolutely,
it makes it worthwhile. I'm always learning things myself, and I feel like that's half the fun.
Absolutely. So do you have any, keeping in mind this is going to air in January, do you have any big events coming up at the museum? Any speakers coming in? Any kind of stuff going on there?
Well, I'll talk just a little about the museum itself. The Paranormal Road Trippers Nightmare Gallery. We're located in Somerset, Kentucky. You can book tours for the Nightmare. I guide all the tours myself. Right now, our tours are free. They are free admission to the Nightmare Gallery. All you have to do, though, is go online and book a tour at nightmaregallery.net. It's free. You pick a date. All the dates and times that were available are on there. And basically all that booking the appointment means is that I know when I need to be there when the museum doesn't sit open. I guess we don't have an employee that sits there. It's always going to be me. I give free tours, usually last between 30 minutes and an hour to walk around and talk about all this stuff. As far as 2025, we built the Nightmare Gallery in 2022. In 2024, we expanded, a rather significant expansion this past summer, but we didn't quite get finished expanding. I've been telling people all year that my wife and I gave birth. We had a daughter now, and right when she was born, I was rushing to get all the expansions done on the gallery, and then life happens, and I wasn't able to finish up on everything. Well, I've been working diligently while raising the daughter for the past 6-8 months. But we are going to finish the expansion, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people who've been to the gallery before just how much different stuff is going to appear. So we doubled in size this past summer, but there's a lot of holes and things I wanted to change and fill in. So come summer 2025, we're going to have a grand reopening with all sorts of new exhibits and things to look at. Every month in the summer, we invite guest speakers. We have a guest speaker usually come to our gallery. And it's always free admission for people in the community. We like to give back to the Somerset community. And because when I was growing up, I feel like I always heard people say, there's nothing to do around here. You know, small town Kentucky, there's just nothing to do. So as I've got a little older, I'm thinking, you know what? Well, I'm going to give the kids something to do. We're going to have these free kind of events. So once a month in the summer, always on a Saturday night, we have a free outdoor guest speaker. We invite a guest speaker to come up, take the stage, talk about some of their experiences, this sort of thing, and then afterwards we show a horror film. Usually, it pertains somewhat to the guest speaker. This past summer, we had an author by the name of George Dudding. He's kind of a famous guy. He's written 65 books about all things that go bump in the night. He drove down from West Virginia, gave a free presentation outside the gallery, and afterwards we watched a book pertaining to. He's written a new book about vampires, and so we watched Fright Night afterwards. We also had a magician come down this past summer come up from Nashville, Tennessee, a kind of a famous guy by the name of Russ Nowak. He's one of the great regional magicians in these parts, and he came up, put on a free hour-long magic show for everybody who came to the gallery, and then we watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space afterwards. I thought that was kind of clown themed. We had a lot of those. We had a Bigfoot investigator from Eastern Kentucky who had a lot of interesting tales to tell, including about his own sightings. But yeah, we always do that. So we have not announced our lineup of guest speakers just yet for the summer. But usually every month between May and October. We have a one Saturday a month. We have a guest speaker, and then that person will afterwards we will watch a horror film. And it's always free. It's a lawn chair theater. If it's a cold night, we put a few bonfires out. We've been known to have 5, 6, 7 campfire pits around. And we put up a big screen and the stage. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So again, I can't really tell you specifically about the events we are going to be having at the gallery just yet, because we have not announced them just yet, because I don't know exactly what they're going to be. We haven't put them together yet, but we will in the coming months. I would say by February. So by next month, we will have announced at least our first event for the year.
Very cool. Awesome. I have your Paranormal Road Tripper link to the website.net in there in the show notes, and I will get the museum in there as well, or the gallery in there, and also a link to your books on Amazon as well for anybody interested in picking those up. So
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come see us. Tell everybody, if you're down in Kentucky, there's a lot of weird stories down here. It doesn't matter if you're just interested in ghosts or Bigfoot or UFOs or even horror movies. There's a lot of interesting tales to tell, and I love telling them. So come to the gallery. It'll be a free tour, and I will fill your ear with folklore.
Sounds great, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. You have so many cool stories. I look forward to having you back on my other show to talk all Bigfoot and cryptid and stuff, because it sounds like you got a lot of that too. So,
oh yeah, I would love it. That sounds like a plan. It's been great.
Awesome, man. Well, you take care, and we'll talk to you later.
Yes, thanks.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys go check out all of his books and the Nightmare Gallery down in Somerset, Kentucky. Sounds like it's going to be a great year coming up with all kinds of cool events. So make sure you head on over and check that out. Until next time, guys, thank you all for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share on all of your favorite platforms of the Untold Radio Network, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, and the Paranormal Spectrum. Until next time, guys, remember, we are all part of the Paranormal Spectrum. Take care, be well, and I will see you next week.